Out of the Attic on 91 FM has all of your favorite old-time songs in one place. Hear music from Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby, Dinah Shore, and many more. Join Nathan Randall from 6 to 8 p.m. for an evening drive down memory lane, only on 91 FM.
You know, a lot of people nowadays consider oldies to be 70s, 80s music, and then, you know, there's kind of a fine line with...
Yeah, well, that's what you're right. I mean, whatever happened... Well, in our case, it was 10 years, and we were oldies, but maybe the 60s took 20 years to become oldies. The 80s, the 70s and 80s looked like they took about 25 years to become oldies. You know, that's just going to keep happening over and over and over again. My only concern is the 60s, 70s, 80s, they all have their own market in radio, where in fact the 50s we've been actually deserted by radio. Very few stations play anything previous to 1964 now, which means even a lot of Elvis's great hits don't get played anymore, and I think it's a shame. I mean, the music of the 50s and previous to 64 is relegated to Sunday nights, 9 to 10 or something like that on most stations.
And you could fill that hour with just great Elvis music.
Yeah. I mean, you know, only his songs 64 and up are on the general playlists. All the other stuff, Sunday night, 9 o'clock.
With Elvis, so it was a lot of his stuff from that era was more of his movie stuff. And then a lot of his later stuff with the 68 comeback special, and really up until Aloha from Hawaii is really kind of his heyday as far as the older part of his career. But you look at some of his earlier music, like Hound Dog and Teddy Bear, Blue Suede Shoes, stuff like that. That, personally, for me, is a lot of my favorite older stuff, and I really miss hearing a lot of that stuff on the radio myself.
As do a lot of people. You know, I get emails from people all the time. Oh, my God, where can we get this song? Where can we get that song? Because, you know, we have our own radio show, and we play some of that old stuff that we did. And I said, well, you can't get it unless you go to a collector.
Well, and I know, and that's a big reason why I started Out of the Attic here. And I feature mainly music from the 1930s to the 1950s because there's really not a lot of stations, especially in this area, or for the most part of the United States, that play that specific era of music.
You're absolutely right, unless you want to pay and get XM radio or Sirius Radio, they do have stations dedicated to that kind of stuff. Since people pay to hear it, why wouldn't regular radio want to play that stuff that people are paying money to hear?
Right. Well, and then you get people listening to your radio station if you are playing that stuff that they're listening to, and you're really only helping yourself, in my opinion.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Hey, understand that you're going to come out to the Surf Ballroom.
I do plan on coming out to the Surf in early February.
To me, that's like the world's biggest bargain. You know, if you think about it, I think the tickets are $110, but that's not for one night.
That's for all three.
That's for all 3 nights, and they have all kinds of things that you can go to. You know, they have like warm-up events, concerts that you can go to, including in that, and then they have, I guess you could just go in there and hang out. See, I've been there before, and it's a wonderful place. And you feel like you step back in time, but everything looks new, even though it's old. And the first night, you got the Flamingos, us. The second night, Marshall Lytle, who was the original bass player with Bill Haley's Comet, and Tommy Alsop, they're going to be there. And then I think
Chuck
the
Berry.
next night, you got the Bobette and Chuck Berry. And this is a place that's an old ballroom. You know, you can go there, you can have a drink, they have food, and for $110 you can just stay there for three days and have a ball. They do this kind of thing in Europe, but they don't do it enough here.
I've never been out to the surf before, and this is my first year going out, but I really look forward to seeing that really great musical history. I mean, you've got people there that are rock and roll legends that were the original starters, and I'm just glad that I was lucky enough to be born still within the era that a lot of you guys are still performing.
Yeah, well, you know what, Nathan? We're starting to drop every day. You know, like when we do our radio show, we do kind of an oldies news portion, and I always have like maybe 3 artists that died this week. I mean, guys in groups and all, you know, and let's face it, the groups weren't separated in those days, so
right. People
knew the individual members. But people that are passing on very quickly because you got to think about it. We're just about, you know, most of us are in our 70s now.
Right.
And we're trying to keep it together, but we could go at any time.
Right. But, you know, the good thing is that those of you that still can perform do, and it's really nice for younger folks my age and younger and, you know, even a little bit older that still get to experience a lot of the stuff that either our parents or grandparents were able to experience as they were growing up.
Now, I'll tell you something. You can't imagine how thankful we are of fans, young fans like yourself. I mean, it's unbelievable. You know, you would think that everybody who liked this music was old, but that's not the case. I mean, this was good stuff, and there's no reason why younger people can't enjoy it.
Yeah, and I know quite a few people here at campus here at UW-Platteville of my friends that do tune in on Monday nights for Out of the Attic that, you know, they're about my age, and, you know, exactly like you just said, they listen to, you know, this type of music just because, in my opinion, there isn't another sound like this, just, you know, kind of just real good rock and roll sound. This, you know, I don't want to call it classic because I can't really think that it is classic. It's just its own.
Well, you know, Nathan, good music is good music no matter what year it was born. I mean, there's great music from the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and into this century. You know, let's face it, good music is good music no matter when it first got its first spin.
Talking about good music, why don't we talk a little bit about your song At the Hop that you kind of mentioned a little bit earlier? You had said that it was basically another song that words were just changed around so it would be At the Hop. And can you explain a little bit what a hop actually is?
Well, yeah, I guess I better do that because you might have a lot of young listeners. Here's what the deal was. At the beginning of rock and roll, all the disc jockeys who played the music, they didn't get very much money. You know, they were like getting like $75 a week, you know, to be on the radio. So they really had to supplement their income. And the way they would do it is they would have something called a record hop, which was basically a dance where they came in and played their records that the kids heard on the radio. Now, that's exactly what At the Hop is about. It's just something that explains dances. Like the first line is you can rock it, you can roll it, do the slop, which was a dance, and you can stroll it, which was another dance at the hop. When the record starts spinning, you calypso. Calypso was another dance. And you chicken. Chicken was another dance at the hop. Do the dance sensations that are sweeping the nation at the hop. So it was about the disc jockey and the dances the kids did at the hop.
I can't really honestly imagine what a lot of this stuff is like because we don't have dance halls these days for the most part. We don't have a lot of that stuff that you guys had where the DJs would just come in and play some music. Yeah, there's some clubs and stuff around the area, but it's just not the same.
Well, the DJs had to do it because they didn't make any money. And, you know, that, let's face it, they would get $1 a head at these record hops, and some disc jockeys that we knew actually were able to make $4,000 or $5,000 a week running record hops different nights, and that supplemented their $75 a week salary from the radio station.
That would buy a new car back in those days too, wouldn't it?
That was a lot of money. It sure was.
And thank you for talking with me this evening, Frank. Is there anything that you would like to add? Maybe say a little something to the fans?
Well, I'd just like to really thank them for kind of sticking with us for all these years. It's been like 54 years, Nathan. And we go places and we make appearances, and they still show up, and they enjoy themselves, and you don't know how good that makes us feel.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, Frank. And Frank and the rest of Danny and the Juniors will be in Clear Lake, Iowa in February for the Buddy Holly Festival, the Winter Dance Party at the Surf Ballroom, and you can catch them there as well. They've got a website,